Welcome to the third installment of Chapter Deep Dives, where we discuss a fan-favorite chapter among my readers. The main reason from this seems to stem from the fact that it's the introductory chapter for a fan-favorite character as well. Timothy Berman, a 14-year-old ice meta who literally just manifested his powers in about the worst way possible and proceeds to have a very not fun time. But we'll talk about him in more detail later. This chapter starts by solidifying that Maz is fully in the know now and having him wait in the lair for Guy to get back from some hero work. From here we start following the original rhythm of the show. The boys watch Butt Wipe, decide to film and submit a video. Kelly drags Guy to SheZow Con, the usual. I make small changes throughout these scenes, detailing them and making callbacks to previous concepts I've introduced in this story. I once again use the skateboarding scene to showcase Guy's heroics and the boys' teamwork. After that, when Kelly gives him a hard time about being scared, Guy claps back with a genuinely insightful response about his concerns regarding the fact that he's a new SheZow, and those are Aunt Agnes's fans. He also brings up the very valid point that he can't talk as SheZow, so what's even the point of a Q&A since he also doesn't know sign language? Enter a little gadget that I didn't introduce in the previous chapters because honestly it made sense that Sheila wouldn't have it on hand, as other SheZows wouldn't need one. I gave Guy a voice-changing necklace so that he isn't speaking in a horrifically obvious high-pitched girl voice. Not exactly relevant to the story, but it's a neat little detail that fixes up that plot hole and gave us some cool character stuff in the previous chapter. Anyways, I more or less completely rewrote the con scene. In this scene, I wanted to show Guy beginning to build his SheZow persona as a friendly, goofy kid who swears excessively and is genuinely very kind. All of these traits are his own, but when masquerading as SheZow, he allows himself to lean into the more feminine ones and talk more openly about things like fashion and feelings. He's more open in general, having a real heart-to-heart with the audience after the very first question when they ask him where the original SheZow went. And here's the thing, Sheila is guiding him through this ordeal a little bit, but most of it is just him. This is one of our first big examples that Guy is really good at being SheZow. Almost everyone walks away from that Q&A happy and accepting of this new hero. Almost. The next day we get people singing SheZow's praise and we subtly sow the seeds for the conflict in the next chapter with Maz stating that he wants to help. And then we get yet another example of how good Guy is at being a hero as he spots a kid being picked on in gym and immediately rushes to his aid. And who is this kid? You know him. You love him. It's our boy, Timmy! Timmy is a prime example of me showing just how much I'm willing to change these characters. Coldfinger was the first real villain we were ever introduced to, but he was in very few episodes, and like many other characters in this show, wasn't very interesting. In a way, I kind of appreciate that he gave off the vibes of a pathetic asshole who thinks girls owe him attention, but they never expanded on that. Now that I think about it, that concept would have fit really well in the kind of story I'm trying to tell, but it would have been more about calling out sexism rather than Guy's personal growth. So I decided to go in a different direction. My Timmy is instead meant to bring about Guy's first personal failure. Guy defends this kid, talks to him about SheZow, and leaves that conversation with the sense that he might not exactly be okay. But he doesn't say anything. And that kid gets followed home by those bullies and pushed to the breaking point, resulting in an untimely transformation and him inevitably getting locked away. Guy wanted to help someone, both as Guy and SheZow, and in his mind, he failed twice. He failed, and Timmy suffered. And to make matters worse, Tim is also a reflection of Guy in a way. Relatively recently, Timmy's father, a superhero at that, passed away doing what heroes do. Sound familiar? It's not a perfect comparison. There are a lot of factors that push Timmy over the edge while Guy manages to keep on keeping on, the main one being how Tim's powers manifest. Guy was in the safety and privacy of his basement with a supercomputer mentor to immediately explain everything to him, versus in the middle of being attacked with his comfort object having just been ripped away from him. But still, it's enough that Guy can empathize with him. And he tries to. He tries to reach out to him, but... well, Boxster fucks up. This is the chapter that has the most of Boxster in it so far, and this is where it becomes very obvious that this man is the root of a lot of Guy's issues. We see it in some minor details in previous chapters, but here is the biggest showcase of Boxster's biggest flaws. He's a typical man with toxic masculinity motivating many of his actions. He doesn't listen to SheZow when he tries to solve things peacefully, and refuses to see Tim as anything other than a threat until it's too late. In case it wasn't obvious, this is also a bit of a commentary about how cops behave, but I digress. The breakdown that Boxster's actions caused were a bit of an insecurity in my writing here. When writing this, I knew that there would need to be something that broke him in this way, but I wasn't sure how to make it happen because, in all honesty, Tim acts unreasonably for the rest of this chapter. There was no real proof that SheZow was part of his struggle, or that he had done anything bad to the previous SheZow, but that didn't matter. Tim had been attacked by his bullies, the police, people who were supposed to protect him, hurt his own mother, someone who desperately wanted to protect him, and then his mother was threatened seemingly by the actions of SheZow, someone who replaced one of the few people that still brought him happiness. So with all this in mind, I hope it made sense for Timmy to have reacted this way without making him an unlikable character. But that's a call for you guys to make. Speaking of Timmy's mom, with how little we saw of her in the actual show, she's basically just my OC, and I love this woman. I mean, this lady was romantically involved and married to a superhero for a long time, so she knows her shit. She didn't know if her son would ever develop the same powers as her husband, but she was damn well ready for it. Until her baby boy metas out in a really destructive way, and now suddenly the police are trying to take him away. Not only that, but they succeed. And now your baby boy is gone, and in a medically induced coma because the government doesn't trust your little baby to not break out and try to kill people. And because you don't have any powers yourself, you're powerless to stop this. I love Timmy's mom so much, and I am so sorry for putting her through this torture. Her name is Audrey Berman, by the way. Never mentioned that in any of the chapters so far, but now y'all know. Anyways, the plot is pretty simple after this. Fight, win, then Guy, Maz, and Kelly visit Timmy in his cell and go home, where we get the scene that cements Boxster as not just an asshole, but a nuanced character! That's right, lads, everyone's a three-dimensional character, especially the ones that cause conflict. Now, my sister, whom I read this story to as both family time and something that forces me to actually reread my work before posting it, absolutely hates Boxster. She flipped this man off every single time he enters a scene, and honestly, it's hilarious. But despite what she thinks of him, I honestly love this scene. Because the way Boxster comforts his son here is both so good and so bad. He cares and loves for his son so much, and he makes some good points, but there's also just this undertone of toxicity. The heteronormative thing about the problem being a girl problem isn't even the worst bit. The fact that this conversation basically ends with Boxster saying, "Hey son, this wasn't your fault. So stop feeling bad about it and toughen up." Which, no. But man, are flawed characters with good intentions fun to write about. Then Maz saves the day by offering a bit of distraction, showing that they won the butt wipe video contest. The end. The more I'm talking about this, the more I'm realizing why so many people like this chapter so much. The introduction of a sympathetic character, the introduction of a complete badass, a dive into the issues Guy has with his father, and our first look at Guy completely putting his own issues aside and desperately trying to save someone he met a few hours ago. And failing. For now. There are a few smaller highlights here too, like Maz being supportive as per usual and proclaiming himself as SheZow's sidekick, Kelly's support of Guy and seeing through her eyes the issues that Guy still has with how emotionally cut off he is. All in all, probably have to agree with my readers that this is the best chapter compared to at least the last two. It's really where Guy's issues start to take off, and this chapter is still informing the events of future installments of the story now. Thanks for watching, and what's been your favorite chapter so far?